Welcome to the Mental Edit, where we keep it real, unfiltered, and honest because mental health is complicated. I'm Megan.
And I'm Rachel. We're here to have candid conversations about mental health, what it is, what it isn't, and everything in between.
The Mental Edit is for educational and informational purposes only. We are mental health professionals, but this podcast is not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional treatment. If you're struggling, we encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health provider. And if you're in crisis, please seek immediate help from a trusted professional or emergency services. Now, let's get into it. Welcome back to season 2, episode 2 of the Mental Edit. And today we're going to be talking a lot about body image and self image. And a lot of the terms that we commonly throw around, they're actually psychological terms that are being misused and villainized in pop culture. And this therapy speak with terms like ED, eating disorder, or body dysmorphia, are becoming common language when they are diagnoses. The benefits of social media, TikTok, Instagram is that it can help us feel more in tune with the world. That was the original purpose and people, but it also sets up competition and we become in constant competition with ourselves in self-doubt, whether if it's about our image or inner thoughts or behaviors. And it sets us up in a war against us versus us. And that has become the foundation, really, of a lot of this body dysmorphia, ED, anorexic talk that's going around right now. So today we're going to explore more of these terms, how they're presenting in therapy speak and the media, and how we can really break them down to help you understand what they do mean.
Yeah. And I like how you said that social media was, I hope, about connection and making communities. However, I think particularly in the body image space, it's very tricky, right? So you can find support groups, so to speak, on any topic that you want, right? Especially related to body image. However, are we really encouraging each other or are we competing with each other? That us versus us thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot in influencers now, they post their weight and their height. And okay, in
What
one
size, true to size up, extra small. Don't even get me started.
and okay, but it could be coming off that they're genuine in that, but there's also the approach where you're then saying, "Okay, if I'm that height and I weigh that much, but I don't fit into this size, am I enough?" Or even I hear it with pregnant moms, they're then comparing their bellies to someone at 4 months versus 5 months, and what happens if I'm bigger than that? And every individual is individual. And this is setting up again that war versus self.
Yeah, and I think body image and all the conversations around it have really exploded, obviously, in the last decade or so because of social media. It's such an obvious thing, but it bears stating, right? Constantly seeing these perfect images, photoshopped images. I think something that happens is, at least with celebrities, they don't acknowledge all the plastic surgery they've done or enhancements they've done on their bodies. Like all of that has an impact on us.
What I also find kind of ironic is that we're also in this stage of body positivity,
Yes.
supposedly, where we're supposed to be promoting body positivity and curves are beautiful and the word
Yeah.
thick. And there's so many terms out there that culture's trying to say we're body positive.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that term first, actually. I think that's a good term to cover. So, this concept of body positivity, what is your understanding of that?
That everyone's beautiful and that we should all love our bodies and that um, perfect is subjective. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
But if anything, it kinda does the opposite.
I think so. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it's what I like about it is that it opened up space for people in different bodies to have voices and Instagram accounts. But if you kind of talk to a lot of those people or hear some of their behind the scenes stuff, they still don't always feel great being labeled that way versus, the classic influencer, that's super skinny and all that athletic and, whatever. So,
I think it's tough also when there's people in the media who are promoting body positivity. For example, call out Meghan Trainor, and then they show up a couple months later in an incredibly new physique, which awesome. They then claim that they're more healthy, which probably they are, but were they healthy before? Probably. And then we're like, wait, they were body positive, inspiring me, and now I'm not on their bandwagon anymore. Are they not on the bandwagon? And there's this self-doubt and question that comes in.
that's a big one you see with celebrities. And again, should we be comparing ourselves to celebrities? Absolutely not. However, do we all do it? Yes. And I think celebrities really promote a certain image, right? But, to say you changed your body by, like, walking more, I've heard, or just, like, playing with your kids is really damaging on the average person, and that is a whole subject we could get into. But, yeah, this I think body positivity has kind of lost its meaning, I'll call it. Like, it had its moment, and I think the moment has crested because, we've kinda lost the plot there, I think.
Yeah. Let's start with the term body dysmorphic disorder, but we call it
Body dysmorphia. So this is a term you see thrown around a lot of people. Usually it's around weight, I would say. Or it could be facial. I was trying to say facial features a lot of times. And the way it's been used more commonly is just something you don't like about your body. Or for example, you have weight changes in your body and you think you are heavier than you are, you think you are thinner than you are. Either way, you're very self-conscious about some part of your body, but it's not.
so yes, the way society uses it minimizes what it truly is, which is a subcategory of
OCD.
OCD. I tested
Yeah, so I looked it up, Nurse. So body dysmorphia is a preoccupation with one or more perceived deficits or flaws in physical appearance. So this is very different than not liking your body or size or whatever. Like, you become fixated that there is something actually wrong. So I think it could be as simple as, like, you get fixated that one eye is smaller than the other.
yes. It's an intrusive thought, an unwanted thought, and usually these thoughts are causing shame because we feel like we're not enough. And that shame related to OCD can then lead into other areas of our life, causing anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
So the compulsion is also getting this fix where a lot of times people get hooked on the plastic surgeon and will recurrently return to the plastic surgeon for a thinner nose, thinner nose, thinner nose. And at some point they don't have a nose anymore, but they still don't see that.
Yes.
And that's body dysmorphic disorder.
Yes.
There's obsessions, intrusive thoughts, those sticky thoughts, as I always call them, that don't leave our brain.
Yeah.
And we are grounding, we're not grounding the reality. We're really basing everything off of anxieties and then this fear and shame build. And we lose really a reality of what we do look like.
Yeah. And there's obsessive mirror checking or avoidance of mirrors. You probably don't want to be in front of any kind of camera picture. Maybe you don't have a lot of avoidance of cameras. It's huge. Yeah. I see a lot of people I hate the way I look in pictures. I don't know why that statement breaks my heart. What do you mean? I always say, like, I didn't even want it. Like, I say, oh, that's what you look like. And, I did not.
That's like it looks like, and we love you.
Yes.
Yeah, I love photos because I feel like they're a journal to our lives. I'm snapping photos all the time, and there are people around me who don't like their photos taken. I'm like, don't worry, I won't post them anywhere, but they are important, and usually they look back on those photos, make people mouth like, I'm so glad you took that.
Yeah, and the photo thing, while it is not technically body dysmorphic disorder, it is kind of a dysmorphia with how you look, right? Because fun fact is that all of us just look at you in that photo and we see the person that we know. It's not as if I've ever met someone in life. I'm like, oh, you really are not good at pictures. Like, that's not a thing, right? But people do get obsessive over it. And again, because we are taking a lot more, I also take a ton of pictures too, because that's our scrapbook for our life, right? So when people don't want to be in it or they avoid, I don't like my smile, like that kind of stuff does border into the dysmorphia category. Not as serious, but I think it does.
It's like a trait of dysmorphia. Yeah. So as we talked about in the OCD episode, when we have OCD or displaying qualities or traits of OCD, our wall gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what also can happen with body dysmorphic disorder. We're no longer going to the pool. We don't want our photo taken. We're avoiding things when we need to put on gowns or dresses or having strong social anxiety around them. We're going for plastic surgery all the time. So when we show up into a provider's office and we're like, I have body dysmorphia, we're really minimizing just because we don't like our weight or don't identify with the size on our jeans. That's not body dysmorphic disorder because it's not making our world smaller and ruining relationship with selves and others.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the work there is to just figure out your level of self-esteem and, how much, it probably goes back to childhood, how much emphasis we put on a child on looks and hands up versus personality and other characteristics, right? It is a true thing that people do more remember how you made them feel than anything. So to kind of focus solely on looks is such, it's so limiting.
So we're gonna speak some millennial terms now. There's also millennial experiences. So let's dive back to like the 90s, late guys.
Yeah, so the classic millennial, I'll speak for women, but I'm sure men joined in at some point, experience was really very, very thin with men. So thinness was, a way for you to just be at the top of your game. Celebrities were so thin. It's kind of become this joke now that we're all not even secretly, but it's almost entrenched in us
As millennials.
to want to be thin.
Yeah, our self-worth comes from the size on our G.
Yeah, and so one term that, when we consulted our intern about this, she said is not a term we use anymore, but we used to call skinny girls out as a way to make them look like sick, like there's something off for how your ex says, and it was always, I mean, at least like used as a term, like almost envy and jealousy, right? You'd be like, oh, she's so, she's so,
And it's a chemical diagnosis.
right. Now I think they use the term like, oh, she probably has an eating disorder. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about anorexia nervosa, because that is, debilitating. It's a debilitating.
And it's a shame because, yes, it affects the patient and their health, and it also affects the family and people around them. And it's a serious health condition when their life is on the line.
Yeah.
And their BMI is sometimes even in the single digits, and their organs start to fail.
Yeah.
So it's not something we should be throwing around lightly. It is a lifelong battle. And if he knows someone with an eating disorder, you know how difficult every day is for them.
Yeah.
When we look back, I want to kind of go back to the late 90s. You look at like America's Next Top Model and Tyra Banks telling a girl was a size 4 that she was spaff and throwing that word out there. And then they would actively display on television the girl's not eating. Or growing up, everything we ate, whether it was Bora Dunes or Jell-O cups, were fat-free.
Or sugar-free.
Sugar-free. Everything was labeled that way, and that means it was a good food.
Yeah.
So good.
And it was okay to eat, right? Because so I think now that we're talking this, so we have come a long way in this arena, right? We still prioritize thinness. I can't diminish that. But the conversations around women's bodies in particular are much different.
What do you think has changed it?
You would never have Tyra Banks saying that today. She would not be able to. And you would also have different size models on because they would sort of like force that, right? It has to be other kinds of models.
Solution. Yeah. I think what changed was our generation as millennials realizing how abusive this was to our brains, our growth, our children, and that it is now a lifelong battle that we all face because it was ingrained in us in media at that age. There's so many other examples of shows and characters. You think about Britney Spears or when Jessica Simpson. I will always remember her in those jeans. That jeans, yeah, look at her now and she looked totally fine. Like that's most women on a good day. Speaking of millennials who survived this and are still suffering, the Kardashians.
Yes.
They were victims of this mentality and they're sick. And it's a shame because they definitely were villainized and victimized by the millennial diet culture.
Yeah. So eating disorders, as you mentioned, they are such a serious thing. They are debilitating. It is not just an obsession, so to speak, with how you look, because oftentimes with eating disorders, they take it way past the point of thinness.
It's something with eating disorders I want to point out. Normally, they don't stem just from body image. They usually appear after some form of a trauma because that is how we learn as a young child that pain control our lives, or the only thing in our life at that time as a teenager or young adult that we can control is what we put in our map. So whether someone in our life is suffering from cancer, or someone died, or our brother or sister is sick, something really terrible is happening in our lives. Okay, let me control what I can, even if it's subconscious, and it's what I put in my mouth and the number I see on the scale. So a lot of times an eating disorder is not even based on itch.
That's right. Yeah. Control, anxieties, trauma. Yeah.
And there's serious mental health diagnoses and physical diagnoses that usually deserve hospitalization, and they deserve a higher acuity of care, and usually more than even I can provide.
I was going to say, you and I actually don't even treat eating disorders. They are a subspecialty. They do sometimes order in the addiction realm, I would say, because you can't get addicted to that kind of thought process as an obsession over food. So yeah,
and it's not that I don't want to treat them. It's that it is higher than my acuity. If the person has a treatment team, meaning dietitian and psychologist, then I feel secure in treating medication. But yes, it definitely deserves a certain type of therapist.
Yeah, so that tells you everything you need to know about eating disorders, right? That, kind of we need that extra level of specialty. Anything that gets specialized like that shows its seriousness to me.
So imagine someone who's suffering with a true eating disorder, and we're throwing this around. So who's say, oh, you're not going to drink the full sugar Coke, you must have an eating disorder. Yeah. And imagine how that makes them feel. So I think we really, and something that we're talking about also that I want to point out is that eating disorders are just based on skinny. Do you want to talk on that? Because that's not true either.
That's true. I mean, there is the other way, which is binge. Yes. Binging is a common term. Yeah, that probably has been used also, just referring to like eating a ton of food, or like, oh, I binged last night and ate a thing of ice cream. But true binge eating disorder is also debilitating in the other direction, where people truly cannot stop themselves from eating.
Yeah, I do treat a lot of binge eating disorder, so the high understanding for it. And it's eating more than the typical person was in a certain sitting. Okay. It is feeling, and this is why I feel it most important to treat, is the high guilt and shame.
Yeah.
And self-loathing that comes out of these episodes. And usually these episodes of binge eating, which is this more than a typical person would be, come as a way to self-regulate emotions or distressing times. Or let's say you did survive a highly stressful date with a guy, you might go home and order a lot of food to emotionally regulate and almost get that dopamine. So binge eating disorder and people who are underweight, overweight, they binge eat. Sometimes it is paired with bulimia. It doesn't have to be, which is purging. It doesn't have to be paired with purging, but it's the guilt and shame that come with binge. And it's not talk about eating disorder. We automatically just think of anorexia, but binge purge should not be left behind.
And binge is a newer diagnosis, and they've actually developed medications that help with it. Yeah.
There's, I think, only one FDA-approved medication on, do not one FDA-approved medication for binge eating disorder by this.
Yeah, and he talks about eating following an event or an emotion. That also comes from childhood, right? You kind of see that food throughout your life was used as comfort. You were upset, here, have a cookie. You were upset, here, eat this, right? I see it in parenting now all over the place. Like when kids are crying, just give them a snap.
Or food as a reward as well.
And I've tried to, if asked, I'm like, we should just let kids be in distress for a little bit, right? For example, just like let them sit with their emotions. And I also try to say like not to be too regimented, but meals should be deliberate, right? We shouldn't just kind of be like snacky and eating all day just to like create floppy habits. But again, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, so millennials, we see you with these topics.
We see you, we argue. I read it's something Megan and I talk about a lot, like just to say, even filming this podcast, right? We're sitting here tweaking our outfit. How do we look, right? It's so ingrained in my brain. I think about it every single day. And it's funny because I have a client who's younger than me, and I had to tell her that I think about it every day too. And she was like, what? I'm like, I thought, this is just, I've learned to like live with the thoughts, right? Because I realize it's not really my fault.
Oh, as millennials, we are survivors of this culture, especially as millennial females.
Yeah. And I don't want to minimize that it's still going out today, because it very much is.
So it very much is.
Yeah. But at least there's more awareness that, like maybe this isn't so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our next term is social anxiety, which is a kind of an interesting one to put in body image, but it does work here because social anxiety, to make it.
Yeah, diagnostically, it falls under a social phobia.
Okay.
And with social anxiety, there has to be a fear or anxiety around a social situation that's out of proportion to the situation itself.
Okay. So let's say it's just a cocktail out with some colleagues and you're really breaking down, or a typical night out at the bar with the girls and you're breaking down about it.
So social anxiety is debilitating and, again, will tighten your world. It will ruin relationships with people and yourself. And it can sometimes happen before the event, but it can also happen after the event, where you're reliving and having intrusive thoughts and panic about what did happen at that event. And really, in reality, you just showed up, but it's dead.
That's the perception from everyone else, is that you were just there, but you so home. And this does get magnified with drinking a lot. So, sometimes people have, after they sort of process all the alcohol they drink, whether they're up in the night or they wake up the next morning early, they'll start to just replay with, what did I say? Was I funny? Did I say something weird? Did everyone think I was weird? And it's not just those four thoughts. That thought will get stuck on a loop for like hours.
With social anxiety related to body image and self-image, though, I think a lot of times before going to parties or events with social anxiety, how people see it in culture is just worrying about what to wear. Maybe the girls will start a group chat about what to wear.
Yeah.
Where I see this starting is back in high school when the girls are picking out prom dresses. So, and you have to send what dress you're getting to like the group message or Facebook group so no one else gets that dress. And they'll get, is everyone wearing this color? Am I the only one wearing strapless? Does someone else have A-line? And we start to become overcognizant of how we're appearing in social situations.
And this also manifests with hair, right? Because everybody has such different hair types. But I feel like every generation has like the ideal hair that you wanted to have. And so you get obsessed and over getting your hair to that, whatever. I did what I wrote. It was like super.
Oh, yeah. We would get the wet to dry straighteners.
It was impossible to get my hair straight. So I would like straighten them and just like.
You didn't try the scrunch? Or scrunch?
Yeah. Oh, and that too. No, I didn't know. My hair wasn't curly enough for it. I'd say you could never win. But anyway, yeah.
What % of social anxiety do you think, just personally, not professionally, is image related?
I don't know. I see it more in personality, and not personality, but conversations or coming off a certain way or not wanting to come off certain ways, particularly in like early adulthood when you're trying to make new friends, right? So you're trying to make mom friends, right? So, but that, that's probably when the image stuff comes up. So you're in a mom group, right? And like 3/4 of them show up at leggings, and then a couple women are in like these cute little dresses. There's going to be social anxiety there. Like, oh, she's more together because she put a dress on, whereas I'm just in leggings, right? But maybe that's all you could have done that day. But yeah, I think a lot of times, particularly postpartum Curie, but you can last honestly until like toddlerhood sometimes, where it's not like you just like can't get it together, or that's just not your priority, right? But the comparison there just gives you such social anxiety. Like, am I going to make these mom friends, for example, right, if I'm not dressed a certain way, right? And you do see, this group thing happening around clothing and appearance, right, with mom groups. Yeah.
I'm going to self-disclose. I think that if I was in therapy and someone challenged me on this, like appearance in social situations, I would always give my classic, look good, feel good.
Yeah.
And I would deflect that way. Because if we look good and we feel put together, then we're going to perform well. And yes, that is an angle we can take to this, but and to what a degree are we going up buying a new outfit every time? Are we harassing our friends about what they're wearing?
Yeah.
Are we considering not going to this event because how we appear? So yeah, we can say to some degree it's look good, feel good, but then also
and maybe what we're getting at here is the differentiation of this term. So social anxiety actually isn't really about appearance or how you looked or what people were thinking about you. So the social anxiety just gets to doing that even in terms of eating, right? You sort of go out with a group and we kind of looking around like maybe we want the burger, but then someone else goes first and they order the salad. Do you still feel comfortable eating a burger? I'd be ordering a burger, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, and I think that starts probably when we're young and eating lunch at a table in high school, and that girl skips her lunch that day, and we might be like, okay, well, she's skipping her lunch, then I should skip my lunch too.
Yeah.
And this becomes a competition, and maybe it's just us millennials, but I think it's probably ingrained in us that we're in this competition of body always with gears around.
And those things show the most control around food and exercise and discipline.
It's a great point, Rachel, the control.
Yeah. That's really all it is. Yeah.
Or comparing workouts. Oh, I ran 5 miles today. Oh, I'm going to get in my 6 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And is it for health or is it to feel superior around your fears? Yeah. And are we running or working out because we like it?
And for the endorphins or to that log the calories and see, yeah.
Or take a gin pic and post it to make people jealous.
Yes.
So I think where we need to bring this all together is reflecting on relationship with self and really having a deep conversation with our therapist or even rhetorically in our own privacy about who we are, who we want to be, and what does that look like and how we reflect it. And also, how are we not going to pass this on to the next generation, whether it's our nieces and nephews, our children, our friends' children. How do we stop this?
That's a lot of talk, like policing is, in a touch word for it, but like being mindful of how you're talking, right? So even at the dinner table, right, you're eating with your kids, instead of saying like, oh, I should stop eating, you can just simply say, I'm full, right? There's different ways to talk about that and not labeling foods as good or bad. There's a whole thing now about even normalizing some sugar stuff, which I take a little issue with. I still think it's important to prioritize healthier foods, vegetables, proteins, what have you, right? But just even the way you present food, right? It's not about your body, it's about energy, right? And making you feel strong and helping you grow, right? Those conversations, but yeah.
Can we agree then that cancer is not this wide umbrella of body positivity? Yeah, that's not the answer.
No, it's not. And I think, and that term, like I said, I think it's lost all meaning at this point.
Yes, maybe it worked a little bit for a little bit of time.
I think it started a lot of conversations. I read a really good book called Fat Talk around it, and she took it to she took it to a very extreme level, I thought, but it wasn't a level. It was a level I thought our society probably could never get to, but it was interesting to read because she made you think about all the different ways you think and talk and approach food. So, yeah. Wet bodies.
When I hear body positivity, I think of radical acceptance. Like we shed radical acceptance about our body. And when I think of radical acceptance, and I talk about it with patients, I'm like, when we radically accept something, it means it has no impact on our reality. Yeah. And I think when you talk about weight and just radically accepting that, or cholesterol, it does have an impact on our reality. Yeah, because it has an impact on our longevity, our ability to move, how our body works, feels, and functions. So we can't just radically accept an unhealthy body through body positivity, right? But can we do it with kindness and proceed forward on a health journey with kindness? And I think that's where it's important for a patient to have a team, whether it's a registered dietitian and a psychologist and people who can help on this journey, and always finding moderation, because anything radical is not sustainable.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, your body and weight and all that, it's bring it back to how you feel. How are you sleeping? Do you feel tired? Do you have energy? All that stuff will give you a lot more important information than the number on the scale.
And little things, putting down the phone, drinking some extra water. I am very surprised in my job by how much water people do not drink.
Oh, yeah. Someone told me this recently. Like, people, I don't know. It's not my world. I drink so much water.
Well, in my way,
We call, and I don't, you probably don't know, we call our kids like the hydrated generation. I've had a joke that like they cannot be more than 5 seconds without their water bottles or they go ballistic, right? So anyway, but I know Amy Poehler was just on a podcast where she was saying growing up, like, you did not drink water.
No, we did have water bottles in school. No, we did one juice box with Navy sack and one juice box with blood.
Yeah, that's right. Or milk.
Yeah, so you talk or milk.
Yeah.
All right, we're going. I'm changing. That's good. Anyway, body image. Let's find moderation. Let's be kind to ourselves. Let's be kind to others. Let's just promote kindness.
And this topic, more than any probably that we'll cover, it's really important to be mindful of your words and the things you're saying and comments. And listen, we all appraise other people's bodies all the time, but keep it to yourself. Or also examine, like, why do I feel the need to look at that person's body and have an opinion on it? Like, that's...
And not just monitoring our words, but when we say something, think, what was my motivation in saying that? And what was I trying to get out of that? Because we might bring it back or consolidate what we were going to say about food or image or clothes to someone. But still, what was the purpose of saying that?
Yeah.
Was that trying to be my classic quote? Are you trying to be hurtful or are you trying to be helpful?
Right. And just want to acknowledge this is a huge topic. So, we kind of did our best with it today. There's always so much more to talk about. In our next episode, we are going to talk about PTSD and trauma. So that will be an intense episode, but there's a lot to say there.
And how it's minimized and stigmatized in society through words like triggered or flashback. Like, these are clinical terms that we are just kind of...
they're just co-opted. I guess the theme of this entire season is just terms getting taken, and the awareness is raised about the terms, but they lose a lot of their meaning.
Our goal is to kind of bring everyone back in so we're all on the same page together and we're talking with kindness. Yeah, and meaning. Great. See you next time.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to The Mental Edit and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Give this video a like if you found it helpful, and drop a comment with your thoughts or questions. We want to hear from you. You can also DM us on Instagram at The Mental Edit with topics you'd love for us to cover. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. No fluff, no BS, just real talk about what healing actually looks like.